Hey, it's Biddy Penny. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to make some Slimline Trifold cards and Mini Slimline Trifold cards. So this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I'm scoring at 3.5, and this is all on the 11-inch side, and 7 1/8 inch. So those are my two scores. I did not trim this paper at all. It's still measuring 8.5 by 11 as I make these two creases. After I make the 3.5 and the 7 1/8 inch crease, then I'm going to fold and burnish my creases here. Burnish my folds. So this essentially is our Slimline Trifold card. And this fits perfectly in a number 10 envelope. I did give that one panel 1/8 of an inch more just to accommodate for the fold. And now what I'm going to do is just trim off the excess paper, which is roughly 1/4 of an inch. You could cut your paper down by 1/4 of an inch to begin with, but I just found after making a number of these that this was my favorite way to do it. So now we have a Trifold Slimline card. It's so easy. Again, score at 3.5 and 7 1/8, and then just fold your card in and trim off the excess. I am using Accent Opaque 120-pound cardstock today. I think I could have used my 100-pound, to be honest, especially with all the layers that I ended up doing. So now I'm going to show you guys the Mini Slimline. For the Mini Slimline, the first thing I'm going to do is on the 8.5 inch side, I'm going to cut that down to 6. So now our paper should measure 6 by 11. Obviously, you could do this with a 12 by 12 sheet of paper as well. You would just be cutting off a little extra. We're going to score at 3 1/4. And then we're going to score at 6, just 1/8 of an inch past 6.5. I can't think of what the math is for that right now. But basically, I'm just giving myself that allowance for the fold, and then I'll cut off the excess. And this won't go to waste, especially the excess on this one, because that's a great sentiment strip base. It's a 1-inch strip of paper. We could always use a 1-inch white sheet of paper, right? So here I'm just writing out the measurements for you guys and showing you. Okay, so here we are. We have a Mini Slimline Trifold card. So simple. I really, really liked making both of these cards. So what motivated me to come up with this design was my cardstock. So I have a lot of Mente cardstock, and I have some different videos on my channel of how I've used it, but I recently was just like, I just really think that the paper is so beautiful. I'd rather just focus on designs where I can just put a pretty piece of patterned paper on the front and call it a day. So that's really kind of what I did with these. Now, the two examples I'm showing you here actually had slightly different measurements, but the measurements I gave you on that postcard will work perfectly for it. So, and then I did a matted base. So basically for the Mini Slimline, the mat should be about 5 3/4 by 3 inches, and the pattern paper is 5.5 by 2 3/4. So, yeah, that's kind of how I cut it down. So basically, if each panel is 3 1/4, you just knock things down by 1/4 of an inch, depending on how many matted layers you want. Of course, this would be beautiful with a triple mat, or I'm sure no mat at all, but I really found like the matted layers helped a lot. And with this design, you can actually get quite a few mats out of one sheet of colored cardstock, which is nice too, because I found myself wanting to use those panels throughout the card. So here I am just getting a few more. And I definitely think you could make this with even a 60-pound weight as your card base or 80-pound weight cardstock, especially if you're planning on matting so many layers. So my cards ended up being very heavy duty, very sturdy, which they feel great like in the hands. I mean, they're so nice. They feel very like luxurious, I think, because they are so heavy and so solid. But that's totally up to you. I still think a 60-pound or 80-pound cardstock, 100-pound would totally work for this project with as many layers of paper that you're going to put on here. This is definitely a great stash busting for 6x6 paper pads if you're making this mini trifold that I'm making with you right now. I used roughly about 3 sheets of 6x6 paper for each card. So this would be a fantastic way. If you're like me, I have 2 boxes of 6x6 paper that I really need to work through. And I think what I'm going to do is building these card bases is so very simple. Just go through and mass cut a lot of these things. You could cut all of these mats at one time. I was doing it as I went here because I was just figuring this out. Flying by the seat of my pants like I always do in crafting, and just figuring it out as I went. So, but definitely if you knew that you wanted to bust through a bunch of your 6x6 paper pads, it would be more efficient to go ahead and cut your mats down, your paper down, everything down. What's really fun about this card design too is that all your measurements can remain the same, you know. So I used 5 panels of this card are decorated. And so now like this one, I just used 2 mats, one that was a little bit smaller. And I definitely used some of my scraps. So I could get 3 mats like this green one from 1 sheet of cardstock, but then I had some nice sized pieces remaining. And so I'm going to use one of those pieces right here on this panel. So I kind of played around, and like this piece right here was smaller than the other mats, but it all worked out because what I did is I brought in my smaller green piece, and then it worked great with this smaller piece. You can alter this any way that you want. You guys bring in ephemera, anything just to your heart's content. I would just play with this design. I was keeping it pretty simple here, and you know, just trying to use up some of my Mente paper, and I just think it's so beautiful and gorgeous that I really didn't need to do much. I think that's actually, for me, the tricky part of this paper. You know, I think a lot of times we look at pattern papers and we're like, oh, that'll make a beautiful background, and then I'll layer a bunch of die cuts or ephemera on top of it. But this paper is more challenging just because it is so pretty, just straight out of the gate. So this is my Handmade by Betty Penny stamp, and I got that at the Paper Source. Each time I show it in a video, I get a question about where I got that, and I ordered it from the Paper Source online. But if you go on Etsy, there's always a lot of sellers on Etsy that make them as well. Now I wanted to show y'all a variation that has like a ribbon closure. Because these are so thick and so sturdy, they're almost like a mini journal. And so I decided that I would use some sari silk and make a closure for myself. So this here that you can see me doing, I'm securing the front of the card with this piece of ribbon, and I glued that all down before putting my matted picture on top. So that is going to be the front of the card. This is the inside fold panel. Now, Make sure you get your ribbon going the correct direction, so you want it going outward from that fold. You could also put it on the back of your card if you wanted to, but I'm not planning on putting a panel on my back of my card, and so I chose to put it on this inside fold. And I'm just securing it down with double-sided tape before I glue down my mats. I really love the way this came together. I thought that sari silk was just absolutely perfect for this paper. So, so lovely. And there is a card. Really different because it has that ribbon, but really, really beautiful. And again with my stamp, and that card is complete. All right, so here you might want to screenshot that. I will also leave the measurements down below, and I'll put them on a blog post as well. But just giving you an idea about the measurements again. And here I am cutting out my mats from one sheet of cardstock. Again, from one sheet for the Slimline, regular Slimline size card, I was able to get 3 mats. And I wanted 5, of course, because I'm doing 5 panels on all of these trifolds. Now for this one, I decided to go with a horizontal layout. So that's a little different, just changing it up. This would be really pretty if you had like a printed 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock as your base, then, and it was a vertical design on the inside or something. You know, it could just be really pretty depending on what kind of like directional paper you have or however you choose to decorate it. I just wanted to show you at least one example where it's not in a portrait landscape, but it's in a horizontal, I should say a portrait orientation or a horizontal landscape. There we go. I hope you guys enjoy this hack. I absolutely loved it. I was so glad it came to mind. So last weekend, I spent quite a bit of time cleaning my craft room, getting it totally in order, which it really desperately needed. But now it's too clean. I don't know. I'm one of those people who, as long as it's my chaos, I can totally work in it. And actually, I like having everything out at my fingertips. So I don't work from a real tidy desk. I actually work from a desk where I have storage all around me, and I have all my inks available. I have all my glue. I have my markers, my embellishments, a ton of stamps. I have everything on my desk. I work with a full desk, and I love it like that. Everything was within my reach. And so when an idea is sparked, I can just grab something and just like go for it. And when I put everything away and I gave lots of things a new home, it was almost like, it definitely was like too clean for me. I don't know. I would love to hear if anyone can relate to what I'm saying, because a lot of times when we see craft rooms and when we get craft room envious, it's because something is so well organized or tidy. However, this last weekend, the learning lesson for me was that that's actually not my bliss. I guess I'm more of like a Jackson Pollock, where I'd rather just spray stuff everywhere and just, I'm a messier person than that. And in my creative space, that's good. Like, I have to know where things are. I need to have a general idea of where everything is. I don't want to hunt for anything, because that really throws off their creativity flow as well. Searching for something, it's like, you know, you have that one stamp set and you're like, I know this would be perfect for this project, but if you can't find it, it can really throw off the flow. So I definitely value and have always had organization to a point, but like, I don't know. I'm going to have to play with it more and restrict or maybe not guilt trip myself over not being the most tidy crafter. Right? So here are my cards. I just feel like they're so lovely. Now, you may look at them and think I could have done more, and that's true. I could have put sequins on these. I'm showing you, they're completely flat. I could have put Nuvo drops, sequins, sentiments, but honestly, I just kind of want to leave these plain, just like they are, so that later on I can come back and give these for any occasion to anybody, and I can doll it up as I wish. But I have an amazing foundation, an amazing card just like it is. I really like this one with a tie. I mean, how often do we get a fancy sari silk tied card? Journals, yes. Cards, not too often. I really like it. And this paper is it's just luscious, exactly the way it is. So if you follow the dimensions that I gave you and that I'll leave below, then you should be able to fit these mini slimlines in a 6 3/4 envelope. Depending on how chunky it is, like ribbon and such, you might bump it up to a 5x7 just to give yourself more space. And depending on how thick everything turns out, but those should fit in a 6 3/4, and these will fit in a number 10 envelope. So the final dimensions for this, once it's folded, is 8.5 by 3.5 for the regular slimline card. And for the mini slimline, it's 6 by 3 3/4. Oh, sorry, 3 1/4. All right, and now I'm just trying to show you what this one turned out to look like. I added some of the 3x4 cutouts. This is from a 12x12 paper pad. Now these, my mats, aren't exactly the same. Like you can see the patterned paper is a little shorter than the colored mat. I was fine with that. And yeah, again, no sentiment, no specific occasion, just a really beautiful card. I did take some ephemera and pop it up. I'm showing you here how it would stand on a table. So I did pop up 3 little pieces of cutouts on the front for that one, but essentially these are really flat cards. But to me, they look so dimensional with that gorgeous paper. And here's how I put this one together. Now I did do a cut apart there and put a card behind it. I would love to know what you guys think about this. I hope you'll give it a try. Thanks so much for watching my channel. I hope you enjoyed the video. I will leave links to my blog and website, which is bittypenny.com, and some information down below. I'll catch you next time. Bye.